Getting lost, having nowhere to sleep, being surprised by the weather, and starving ourselves of food have been part and parcel of most of our travel experiences. If I didn't know other people, I would have assumed that this was the way most people planned their holidays and, by extension, their lives. Growing up with divorced parents in the 1980s meant that very little of my life was properly organized. I never knew who would show up outside the kindergarten to collect me. If it was my mother, we'd go home and I would have to do hours of tracing letters in my little notebook before I could go outside to play. If it was my father, I'd spend the rest of the day as a passenger in his rickety communist-era van in a cloud of cigarette smoke while my father finished his deliveries. One day it was my mum, another my dad, but most of the time it was a lottery. Anyone would show up at the school door, my grandmother, my uncle, one of my aunts, or even a friendly neighbor whose child was in the same group. If it was my grandmother, we'd go on a very long tram journey across the city of Gdańsk. Martial law was still in place, and so it was not uncommon to see tanks blockading the main roads or special brigades patrolling the streets. If there were riots on the street, I would stay with her for a day or two and help her cook copious amounts of food and preserves. At the time, there was very little in the grocery shops that could be described as comestible. Should my uncle come to fetch me from school, I'd end up as a spectator at a moto racing track watching him drink beer after beer throughout the afternoon and lose all the money he had earned the previous week by working at a mechanic's workshop. It was a shame, because he was my grandmother's only son who lived past infancy in penicillin-deprived post-war Poland. If one of my father's sisters came to get me from school, we'd take the tram to the predominantly Volksdeutsche part of the city, where I would spend many quiet hours coloring in and watching my aunts sew dresses and shirts to make a little extra money. From the moment I started to form memories, almost every day of my childhood was different. It came as a shock to me in my early teens to find out that not every family lived their lives with such a lack of routine. I must have been 12 or 13 when my best friend invited me to go on a short holiday with her parents. I don't remember where we went or what we did, but one thing that stayed with me was the folder that the father carried around everywhere we went. Inside the folder, he had filed away an itinerary, passes to the attractions, tram and train tickets, and lots of little papers that made the whole experience run smoothly. Perhaps that is why the holiday was quite forgettable. I think that the way we travel often reflects the way we live our lives. Many, if not most of us, hate the unforeseen. We want to know what to expect and anticipate what may happen. We don't want nasty surprises or random incidents. If you are the type of person who does the homework, who travels through life with a little folder with an itinerary, you may find my story infuriating. You might find it shocking and unacceptable, how little Robert and I had prepared to move to another country, not to mention how little we researched opening and running a guest house.